Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on May. We're going to scramble that completely on May 18th, 2025, at approximately 9 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life's purpose to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies that I guide virtually every decision I make by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into things today, first off, we have a hats off to Storm, our primary moderator who keeps all the technology running, and rest assured with me, that's a challenge. But he also keeps the problem children out of the way. Okay, now, that said, for those of you that are new to join us, understand even problem children are permitted back in. It's just they've had the experience of finding out that trying to start a complication will end up with you looking in from outside, still able to watch what's going on, but unable to participate. Now, that said, we have Ellie Moon in the room. She helps keep the conversation going when it falters, and it has a tendency of asking some rather intriguing questions. Okay. But today we are looking at aliens. Okay, we were going to do this yesterday, but sorry, it didn't work out that way. And we're going to look at alien expansionism. Now, the big difference between alien expansionism and human expansionism is aliens have a tendency to bend because the cultures have already gone through these kinds of problems. They tend to think ahead. What are we going to do if it doesn't work? But before we get into it any further, we're going to start off with the opening doors. And we have Eternally in with the gold. How's it going, Eternity? It's nice seeing you come in at the beginning of the show. Now, I know you've always been listening, and life clearly gets in the way on occasion. Then we have Rachel. Rachel Andrews is in with the silver. How's it going, Rachel? Hopefully things are going well on your end. I know it's been hectic for you a lot of the time. So I hope it's smoothing out a little. And we scroll down a little here. And we have Renee Andrews in with the bronze. How's it going, Renee? I always look at this going, you two are pretty much in competition to see who comes in, first and who comes in second sort of thing. But always nice to see you pop in. And we scroll down and we have honorable mention is in here with the Operation Shutdown comes in with honorable mention. That came out really well, didn't it? And Kira, Renee is saying hi, Kira.
Hello, and to everybody else out there.
So, when we take a look at expansionism, now every little difference between humans and other races as far as this goes. The big difference is experience. They've been around for a lot longer, so they've already gone through it. The whole trick here is for people to try to do their best to learn from other people's mistakes. Now, the most prolific sign of alien expansionism really comes at the hands of the Sarkon. Okay. They are a reptilian race. Most your adults are 12 to 15 feet tall. And yes, if you think about it, they actually discovered Earth a long time ago, way back when dinosaurs roamed. And in all fairness, you couldn't tell the difference. Most people couldn't. But they were expanding and ended up spreading out way too fast. And eventually reached a point where they said, no, we're going to have to, we've expanded as far as we can, we've taken all this real estate, and now we got a problem. So now we're back, but here's what they did. Okay, and I'll use the term year, simply because it's easier than trying to break it down. Realistically, what they did was they took a year of the outlying areas, the outlying systems, and they went, okay, you guys, we're giving you 1 solar year of your local time, okay, and we're going to cut community, and we're going to cut support. During the course of that year, there were requests that were made and fulfilled to get technology, trained scientists, people that could handle the civilization once they were gone. And yes, it was done with volunteers. Okay, but then they had an open communication line. Ow, I hate that. And that was a double lockjaw. But they took volunteers, okay, to reach the outlying areas and went, look, we are open, we are severing connection. So you're getting the opportunity to take what you need, what you require with you, and set up to handle the civilization to make sure these people don't just up and die. Now, they didn't worry about the issue of, oh, we're going to make sure that we get the same lawyers and the same legal system out there, but we will put people out there that can lay out the new laws, because I got news for you. The laws that apply in the jungle do not necessarily apply in the desert or in the swamp. So they put people out there that could sort things out and could think. Over the course of the year, they say they put out, they could, as much supply and the ability to replicate. Replicate, to figure it out on their own, that sort of thing. Net result, you ended up with the Sarkon being the primary lead for the Tormenon, the Kamalian, and the Swazian. Okay, people talk about draconians, about reptilians, almost as though they're one race. And Kira Operation is saying hello.
Awesome. Hello, Operation.
This is what I mean by I keep an eye on what's going on in the on what's going on. Let's try English here, shall we? In the chat room. Oh, something I meant to double check. Where are we here? And there were a couple of new coffees bought just the other day. Just the other day being just yesterday. And the people that put them out, I'm really debating whether I should say anything about it, but I'm going to handle it this way for the time being. To those of you that have either in the past bought a coffee, bought a book, thank you so very much. We are shifting gears now to make this a going concern. Now, the neat part, I'm looking at the different alien races and how they expanded, how they took dominant control over their environment without the option of killing people. Okay, but life works the same way no matter what front you're on, really. Okay, and this is the thing. If you're looking at expanding, talk to people that have done it successfully. And understand, expansion does not happen in a haphazard fashion. And at least not proper expansion. But it is always best to talk to somebody that has successfully done what you're aiming at before doing it yourself. As I've told my boys, do your best to learn from my mistakes. You can make all kinds of new ones, all of your own. Okay, when we look at alien expansionism, there is this neat little problem into another area. No problem, we'll gear ourselves up. You've got to protect yourself. The same applies in all things you're doing. Talking civilization, colonization, or simply building a business empire. you still have to realize you're going up against opposition, much of which you won't know what it is. So you do your best, and they did quite a lot of research and quite a lot of checking things out to figure out where the weak points were. Absolutely. Start talking to the people you know. Aliens do it all the time. Okay. And what you got to remember is they've all gone through what humans are going through. So it might be wise to learn from their mistakes, just as a thought. Now, I keep looking at this, going, people talk about, the aliens are going to invade Earth. Why bother? They're already here and have been for centuries. Some of them. Now, yes, we have been getting new people recently, and that's always fun to work around. But the idea behind most alien expansion and expanding is they're not looking at starting a war. A war is a lousy way to expand because you end up spending so much time, number one, destroying the local infrastructure, and number two, you kill off so many of your eager people. Why go to war? Aliens tend to expand by peaceful colonization. Yes, there are those that will go in and conquer. And it is a form of expanding, but the price is way, way, way too high. Now, here's a bizarre thought for you guys, because we're going to take that concept and understand I don't limit my thinking to this world. But when I take a look at my company, okay, and Inner Voice, I look at it with the same idea. How do we reach more people and get more attention to it and more excitement? When aliens look at expanding, they go, okay, we're going to colonize this planet. Okay, not invade. Meaning, okay, this planet's occupied all over here. Here's an area of the planet that isn't occupied. Let's set up there. Usually it's out in the middle of a wilderness. They can't find a spot away from civilization. Intriguingly enough, they do one of two things. Either go to a different planet or start looking and making direct contact, which can take a long time. Funny thing about it is the alien perception. I'm talking, and I have to call it, I have to bring that into perspective here. Consortium perspective teaches the member races, the member species, that if you're going to expand, make certain there's a purpose behind it, not just the issue of, oh, I don't own that, so I want that. Humans are very much, as it turns out, caught up in the idea of expanding because they don't personally own it. Greed is a lousy way to set things in motion. Okay. Now, when you by the way, Operation, I missed this before, but thanks so much for the welcome back. In a nutshell, my leg gave out so fast I hit the floor the other day, about 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on air. Like I said, I got bad leg that is just a shambles. I do believe I must have seen that. What have we got? Okay. An Operation is asking, who were the first aliens to colonize Earth? Well, I guess to colonize, little hard to call it colonizing. The first race to get here were the elephant. Okay. And they were built on Earth. Okay. But before they were fully established, there was a race, the Moldocs. And I use the term colonizing colonized a little loosely. They crashed. Okay, but when they crashed, they brought along a few people with them. They brought along some Laborians. Again, they didn't colonize. The ship crashed. The Laborians were in transit to the slave markets, to the Moldakian slave markets. And let me just go back into, where is that book? And got to go down. Okay, that will be under G, way up here. Gotta scroll up, primarily because I'm not, if I had just gone down the list, it would have been quicker. But I didn't do that, so. Oh, sure, I'm going to have that trouble. I love when I'm trying to find something on a computer. There we go. They brought with them, when the Moldok crashed here, they brought a small contingent of Laborians who were being sent off to slave trade, and the stowaways, which were the Quinlar. The Kinlar are another race that got here very early. Okay, but because of the speed the Kinlar reproduce, well, frankly, they got a pretty good foothold. They also managed to hide in amongst the local denizens a lot of the time. Now let's go to here. Okay. Now, why, pray tell, did that not show up? Still hasn't. Okay. But that would be the first ones that showed up. Now, somewhere after the Moldok arrived, sometime after that, the Kaldar were put together, as well as the Parake. Okay, and we can go on with the list as it evolved, because as Esau came to life, a lot of the Fae showed up. Okay, and many other races came and went. So now we have a room and we have a world where there's a lot of the ancient races that have moved inside the earth, into the catacombs, into what you would call either inner or hollow earth. Okay, now we've had a lot of people. At this point, I am now up to, that is an excellent question here. I go to there. I've got 119 listed, and I do believe that we're about to jump the number. There is no shortage of people here, in case you haven't figured it out. Okay, but when we are looking at expansionism, the consortium really stepped up the game and said, okay, this is what we are containing to ensure an orderly expansion. It also ensures humans maintain dominant control of Earth, unless humans decide to blow themselves out of the water, which is an option. Not a good option, but it is an option. So, just a quick glance at this. And we are, oh, boy, that's getting big, isn't it? Okay, so we go all the way back up here. Black, we are now out of, by the way, just a side note, out of 95 pages, we have, where are we? Scroll down just a fraction, alpha HRI. We have, out of 95, so we are a third done with final expansion and edit on Races of the World 2nd edition. Okay, and yeah, they've all got pictures. So you'll be happy with that, I suspect. Now, when we look at the expanding side of alien races, they have to do two things. Number one, they look at a planet, find out, does it have a dominant race on it? a dominant sentient race that is evolving. Okay, once a race spots a planet they desire to expand into, they petition the council and go, this is what we're aiming at doing. This is what we'd like to do. We've done our research. We do not know of a race living there. Is this race open to colonization? If the consortium, if the council says, go ahead, it is documented in their files, and that system, that planet actually is designated as, okay, you now own it. Let's say, for instance, the Teklak have asked to colonize a planet. Okay, they don't worry. The consortium doesn't go, well, every time you colonize a planet, you start invading other areas around it. They don't worry about that because there are guidelines set in place. But the Teklak says, we desire to colonize this planet. Okay, there is no, why do you desire to colonize it? There is only, is it already claimed by a sentient race? If it is, the Teklak would be told, it's off limits. Sorry, thanks for the research. We'll put it in our data files, but you're not moving in. Okay, if two people apply for it at the same time, and at the same time, by the way, really boils down to within one solar season of the planet in question. If two races petition to colonize that planet, okay, inside that time frame, then they are usually both given go ahead. But it's a well-known fact this is going to end up in a war. That becomes the problem of the colonizing planets. The one that gains dominant control then turns around and says, we've got control. Okay, and the consortium will at that point back them up and support them. That is now an expanded empire. And there's no problem with that. The consortium is not really concerned with who takes control of an area, as long as they're treating it properly. And before somebody comes to that idea, yes, sometimes a planet is colonized just because of the flora and or fauna that these guys want access to. Again, the consortium does not worry about motivation, only about that one aspect. Is it occupied? Is it not? If it is not, then they set things in motion and go, okay, now it's yours. But in order to hold that society, that species, has a finite amount of time to prove they've got a working foothold. Not to colonize the whole planet, just simply a self-sustaining foothold based in the natural environment. If they do not establish a stable hold, then other species are entitled to lay claim and attempt to colonize the planet. Okay, but this is why when they go to look to expand, they go, okay, how do we get this done quickly and efficiently? Not to build a massive city, just to build a working community. And what has been determined, I mean, numbers of the community vary depending on the species. Okay, but a single individual cannot colonize a planet. Okay, and by the way, just so you're aware, nobody approaches a planet. No, there's never been a Gamoran that has gone, hey, I'd like to take up residence in this planet. Nobody's ever requested, and nobody asked permission. A Gamoran is the one race that can literally land on a planet and merge with it. That is their way of reproduction. Okay, and then everything has to be worked out between them. But the Gaboran are the only race that when they go to claim a planet, because they're the only ones that can go in and do it without asking. But then again, humans, if you think about it, humans don't go and get permission in most societies to have a child. Okay. And they certainly don't go in and ask permission to be born. Which is why when you're looking at the Gaboran, when they decide, I found a planet I'm going to merge with, that is the Gaboran's birth. So nobody asks. Nobody gives permission. Although there are some races that will try and kill and successfully do so, a Gaboran. But, and again, that's where it becomes an interesting problem. Gaborans can call for help, but that's a whole long story. Okay, but it's not a question of protecting Gaboran society. Blue, how we doing? Glad you could join us. And what do we got here? Blue's going, tune in while jumping from one device, iPad to iPhone to another. How's it going? Glad you could join us. And again, guys, if you have a question, absolutely put the question in all caps. I will do my best to answer it. Okay? But when a species is going, we've got to have more room, or we desire to expand onto this new place. Okay? Nobody has to say why they're looking at colonizing. The numbers are all over the place. Although I do find it fascinating that humans, who by the way are not actual members of the consortium right now, some of them are talking about colonizing Mars. It's kind of intriguing, but it's hard for me to call it colonizing when it's already occupied. And no, you don't have to believe me for that. Just go there and visit the people. Really nice guys. Here, oh, by the way, here's a heads up. Okay, I found this one out the easy way. But if you're going to Mars, Martokians on the whole love ice cream. Okay, if you're looking for a trade item, if you can keep it frozen long enough to get it there, hint, put it in the storage room outside of your starship's main operating system. You know, outside the main quarters. You put it in the cargo bay and it'll stay frozen. Might have to get chipped apart, but it'll stay frozen. But there is no, when we talk about petitioning for an expanding empire, all it boils down to is here's the coordinates. We'd like to colonize this. We've checked, to the best of our finding, it's unoccupied. Okay, it will have local denizens, don't get me wrong on that one. Okay, you're more than welcome there, Operation. When you take a look at it, okay, all they do is go, we'd like to colonize. The consortium double checks, makes sure it's unoccupied, and then goes, all yours, go ahead. You've got one local season, period. Now, sometimes that local season is like on Earth, a quarter of the year. Okay, sometimes it's half a year. And yes, there are some planets that have an entire year in one season. So the amount of time you've got to colonize to establish a stable foothold can vary system to system. But what you're looking at, yeah, LA goes, I say there's no problem that cannot be solved with ice cream. Well, I'm not sure how this would help. I'm just thinking, if you're too cold, ice cream isn't necessarily going to help. You know, but on the other hand, it could be fun to find out. I know I've had this problem of waking up on occasion going, I want ice cream. So I do my best to keep a stock. There we go. Yeah, Blue says it's warming up down there in Florida. That's like us. As a matter of fact, let me see that for a second. Yeah, we're getting warmer now. We're actually breaking 50 at this point. And yes, I've transferred it over so that the people in the States can know what kind of temperatures we're looking at. So right now, we're breaking, as a matter of fact, would you look at that? Sometime within the next week here, we should be breaking 70. When a species desires to expand, it's not a long process. All you got to do is take one spokesperson, which is already set up, go to the council and go, here's the planet we're trying to colonize. We do not believe it's occupied. If it is occupying, if with your go ahead, we're going to colonize it. The consortium council at that point will send out emissaries to double check. If it turns out it's empty, if it's not occupied by a dominant race, then they're told, go ahead and colonize. Okay, but if there is a race there that is sentient and is starting to get a foothold, they're left alone. And this is why Earth, when it was first encountered, was never considered colonizable. Okay, the races that ended up here and started evolving here were not from here, therefore did not have the right to take over. Yeah, Ellie goes, we're looking at 90s this week. Yeah, it'll be a little while before we get to that. Probably another month or so. But we will get there. The other thing you got to look at when you're looking at colonization, anytime you go to colonize, plan for all contingencies. Okay, this is where the Sarkon made the mistake in the first place. They didn't count on expanding so far. They had to cut their people loose. Okay, I'll tell you, it's a real hard thing for a sentient race to voluntarily sever ties with millions of denizens. Okay, I mean, it's hard enough with one denizen, but to leave behind entire bloodlines and say, look, guys, we're sorry, we'll give you what we can, but you're on your own. With that in mind, the Sarkon definitely have a I'm better than you kind of outlook. The Thrazazians grew up knowing military and being very honor bound. Of course, it was a violent environment they grew up in. Okay, when you took a look at the Kamalians, very militarily based, planet at war with itself quite often. But then when we got into the other neat little issue, when you go to the Tormanon went the other direction and decided to start selling their ability and selling their honor, whatever you want to call it, loyalty. They turned into absolute mercenaries across the cosmos in their area. Okay, but these are all based out of a group that when it started expanding, the Sarkon were very caught on themselves. We're bigger than you, we're stronger than you, we're faster than you, so i.e., we're better than you. Kind of funny the way that worked out. They're better than everybody, so they expanded so far, they had to cut their outside range. Okay, they did learn, and they reeled it back in and stabilized their own environment. Okay, of course, you got to remember, they let 3 systems go, and that meant they only had one direction to carry out expanding, and that's direction. Okay, they were expanding towards the core, but when they cut off three access points, essentially they cut off their access. And yeah, I realize you got 360 degrees in a circle. I understand this. So yeah, there are ways to get around it, but it does require a certain amount of connection. And where do we go here? Yeah, Blue Cruise is just talking about quantum tech is a special feature included in my Cosmic Blue Space Cruiser. Quantum tech is a really neat thing, and we'll get into it one day. But I will warn you, quantum tech, according to humans, is one thing. According to off-worlders, that's a whole different ballgame of technology. Okay, but when you look at their expanding, they will take technology from wherever they can acquire it, and understand the consortium is a lawful organization, lawful being. They tend to follow in a certain pattern, and they have absolutely established routines to make sure that people are taught the same, are treated the same rather. What have I got here? Oh, okay. I was just seeing to make sure I didn't miss something. Now, the nice little part of it, I missed something. One of the things we have to remember where it comes to expanding, if you expand without thinking, you're going to run into a problem. I can say this because of the fact that I've got literally dozens of different species I've looked at. Okay, humans are absolutely the one on this planet to concern yourself with. But honestly, I find that humans are not quite as fascinating as they might be. What I do fail to understand is why people don't work towards a unification process more than what they do. Yes, there are individuals that do. Where it comes to alien expansionism, it literally is a societal directive. And from there, we're looking at a lot of changes that have to happen. And of course, the other thing you got to remember is as you're learning to expand, okay, you have to realize that expansion has to take into consideration the impact that they're going to have on the local flora and fauna. And again, we've got the other thing that you take a look at. If you're looking at your own office or your own house, when you start expanding the area, when you start clearing it out, okay, it's done the same way. How is my making this change going to affect the rest of my environment? Now, humans had this brilliant idea. If we're going to cut down a tree, if we're going to change the landscape, what is that change going to look like in 140 years? Okay, and to put that in perspective, the term was actually, they looked to see the impact 7 generations down the road. Okay, now depending on who you talk to, when I look at 7 generations, I consider it when can a cognizant adult reproduce and provide a sustainable new generation. That's when you're talking about generations. Okay, so we are looking at that. And when you take a look at that side of it, off-worlders on the whole look at the same thing. Now, when you start looking at ancient races, where do they fit in on the colonization thing? Well, guys, ancient races are already here. They're not trying to colonize the planet, primarily because they got here before you did. So this is what we're looking at is when you start expanding, expansion is a logical thing. Okay. If it is not a logical decision, if it is not a planned operation, what you are looking at is an infestation. And this is the one thing that the off-worlders are concerned with regards to humans trying to expand too fast. And yes, when you look back in the histories of the Sargon Empire, even their analysts from down the road, their analysts looked at the expansion policies of the Sargon Empire and went to the lead and went, okay, your last method of doing this was infestation. There was no planning, there was no thought. Now you've got to rein things in and get a handle on what your purpose is. Same thing where it comes to what I'm writing about. This is why I say all things are connected. This same thought is the same philosophy necessary for when you desire to become successful. Okay, you've got to have a purpose. Why are you doing it? How are you going to make it happen? How are you going to make that come to be? And this is why, actually, I got to go down this week. Care to remind me?
Yeah, sure.
We got to go down to talk to Sue at the printer.
Okay.
And see where we're standing on that. The book's in the print.
Yeah. Cool, sounds good.
But when we take a look at the way that alien and off-worlders tend to expand, they plan it out in very methodical fashion, including knowing who the neighboring areas are and which ones are likely to create a problem. Okay, because yes, it has happened. You heard back in the gold rush days of Earth about claim jumping. Same idea takes place on a planetary level. And this is why people have to be aware of what's going on. Or at least it's an idea. An idea to be aware. Now, one thing that is so fun. I'm evolving things with my eyeballs and wearing glasses now is starting to get really annoying. Although I am starting to be able to read my screen without my glasses, which is really kind of trippy when you think about it. By the way, that's a useless piece of information for the day. Okay, like I said, everything is connected. The one thing that you don't have to worry about, in spite of what so many so-called people in the know are telling you, is Earth is not in danger of being colonized or conquered. Okay, except by its own people. And they're more likely to blow themselves back to the Stone Age than they are to actually piece it together. So what we're looking at here is off-worlders look at expansionism as, okay, have we utilized what we've got effectively? And have we considered all the possibilities? Or are we just simply taking our current bad moves and putting them on a fresh path, on a fresh platter, and seeing if we can mess up another planet? This is not wise, although it has happened in the past. The thing I have found, and this is one of the reasons why my numbers are growing, and I don't mean my numbers in the views. As a matter of fact, I'm running into an interesting snag, and I'm sort of the opinion that I really should quit. I should probably get rid of that in a sense, because the funny part about it is while we're talking about they're expanding, you got to remember, Earth is its own little area. Now, in the Earth Sol, in Sol 4, well, this is Sol 4 here that we're on, in the Sol system, okay, there are multiple races already here on different planets. So expanding to another planet is going to, in all likelihood, be a long-range thing. But this is why Earth has been isolated, and people are told that is a sovereign planet. It cannot be colonized. It's already occupied. Okay. Mars is another one that's already been occupied. So they are not able to be colonized, contrary to certain humans' ideas. Colonization on an occupied planet might be a little bit of a problem. I think they call it invasion resulting in war. And since the Martokians have been coming to Earth for thousands of years, they've got the routine down pretty solid. And they can do it in pretty short order. And rest assured, that doesn't mean 6 months in a leaky boat trying to get to Earth. Okay, it happens very, very quickly. Ellie's just letting us know we're down to the 15-minute mark. Okay, but you got to remember, whatever you're working with, and this is why I'm really looking forward to getting this one book out, as long as you're planning things out, the whole thing about alien expansionism is do it methodically. Research, get to know the outcome, or the desired outcome is more to the point. Pay attention to what is available. If you don't, you're going to run into what the Sarkon ran into. Okay, that being a number of worlds that they occupy that are theirs that they have to let go of. It's very much like when a company on Earth expands its outlets too fast and all of a sudden has to sell some of them off. Okay, usually this is because of poor planning, not poor intention. This is why when you're looking at things, I absolutely encourage you, if you can get a hold of them, talk to the off-worlders that have lived through the expansion process. Okay, because they made their mistakes. Might be an idea to learn from them and make sure you don't make your own. Or more to the point, make sure you don't repeat theirs. Of course, some of the environments that people try and colonize, it's kind of like ringing the dinner bell for the locals. Okay, like I know of one planet, you set down on that planet, and most of the flora, most of it will try and kill you. Okay, they don't try. It's not like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where the flora all of a sudden takes over people. Okay, but the colonists become a local food source or a localized specialty food source. You gotta be aware of what kind of impact. Like I'm looking at my goals with Inner Enterprises. And ultimately, I'm looking at colonizing or reaching out to a lot more people. Okay. I haven't figured out entirely how I'm going to do that. But sooner or later, I'll piece it together. And that's why I say it's very imperative that we really take a look at things and go, okay, what did they do? Well, what the Sarkon did was they went, there's a planet we haven't gone on to. So they jumped and went to that planet. And of course, because they were inside consortium space, they double checked, they did their research, found what they had, what they were looking for, found what the legalities were, as it were, and turned around and went, okay, we're expanding. It was like literally every decade they were moving to another planet. I mean, every local decade. Okay, until a ways down the road, if I recall correctly, it was just over 200 years of steady expansion. Their entire industry had geared itself around expansion, much like mankind's civilization has geared itself around the oil industry, which, by the way, means it can't be wiped out that quickly, not without a whole pile of work. And by the way, I'm not referring to the idea of making sure that you don't oversaturate an area. People continually make that mistake. Okay, but what we are looking at is a species, an organization that says, okay, you desire to expand, no problem. Let's keep it contained. And they do go through the idea of going, okay, have you thought about these check marks? They've literally got it listed out. And if I recall the sheet correctly, they've got something like 100 items on the checklist to make sure that the proper research has been done. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, the consortium, when they're approached to do the work, to expand, the consortium is going to do a thorough analysis and decide whether or not it's going to work. I put my glass down, forget where they are, and get dizzy, turn around looking for them. Needless to say, my eyes aren't necessarily as good as I'd like. Okay, but when we take a look at it, there is a wonderful little setup. Oh, where are we? 51. Okay. There's a wonderful little setup behind the concept of expansionism. Many races, to be specific, the Eniod and the Gaddafi, both decided they were going to expand by infiltration in a sense. No, not reptilian type infiltration like the old V movies. Okay, but they landed, the locals went, oh my, you're gods. And the Eniod and the Gaddafi went, okay. Okay, now, that is another way of striving to colonize. It's a bad idea, and the consortium definitively frowns on it. Okay, so now what we're looking at is a situation where the consortium keeps track of the way that their entire empire is expanding. You got to remember, the consortium itself is reaching into the outlying areas to talk to new races. Okay, and to draw them into the protective fold of the Emporium. Okay, or the consortium. And by the way, no, the Galactic Consortium is not the only organization out there. They just happen to be the one in this system. Okay, now I'm going to throw a neat little wrench into the whole idea. When we start looking at the whole thing of expansionism, we have to realize, and you guys are not going to believe this one in all likelihood, and I can't give you the AU of the locations. I can only tell you what I know. Earth itself is not a single star system. Earth itself is a trinary system. With this in mind, the denizens of these planets they can approach the system, they can approach the consortium for colonizing a planet in either one of the other systems. Okay, but you gotta remember, that's a long way away. And not even the Martokians have that kind of tech just yet. Okay, as a matter of fact, you gotta double check that aspect. But we are looking at an interesting situation where we have to realize that the off-worlders are worried about mankind's drive to colonize, because mankind doesn't even know how to control its own planet. And I'm referring to the aspect of just simply getting along. That's when we have an interesting hiccup. Now, and don't forget, guys, if you've got a question, because these are definitively set up as short runs, okay? But if you've got a question, drop me a line and we'll do my best to get to it. That's the nice part about it from my end. And now all you got to look at is literally, where are you going from here? And there we are. Now, the other thing about it, people keep asking, when are humans going to become full members of the consortium? Sorry, guys, here's the kicker to it. And Ellie's just let us know we're down to the 5-minute mark. Thanks very much for that, Ellie. Here's the brass tacks of it. Until mankind has a one world government, not a dictatorship, until you guys are getting along on a global level, you're not going to be brought into the consortium as full members, although Earth itself will be protected from other colonization. Now, we're down to the last 5 minutes. I do want to let you know, guys, where are we? Tomorrow week, because we missed the one and we'll have to deal with that next week. But we are going to do... tomorrow, during the show, we're going to be looking at materialism versus spiritualism and the different aspects there, figure out where you fit and how to work with it. But until then, I do want to say thanks so very much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. Love the questions, and we'll happily answer more. Okay, but until we talk again tomorrow, 9 p.m. Pacific. Okay, until then, do take care of yourself and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.